We're going to use red scraps. You can see my bin is getting so full, so it's time. And the string block we're going to make today is so unique and fun. I like this quilt so much that I'm going to make the one with you in red, and I made 2 more samples to show you because it's just fun. You start with foundation and one of these pens that disappears in water, so you won't have to worry about it later. And you take the middle third of your foundation and you just draw a line at an angle. I use a long ruler for this, and I vary my angle so that some are less. This one is less than the last one. Some are more severe, less severe of an angle. You get to choose. And pretty much it's supposed to stay in that middle third, but if you went out a little bit, it wouldn't hurt anything. I think it adds interest to the quilt. The middle third is a general rule as you're marking these, but you really can't goof it. This one, for whatever reason, I cut it crooked. You're going to trim these down 1/2 inch after they're sewn. So exactness is not really a priority. The first section, we're going to sew vertical. We're going to start with that part, and you just take your strings and you just choose the first one and choose the next one. For some reason, I have strings that are already sewn together. I think it was from another project I did. I'm showing you that you can put those on, use those. You don't have to sew every place, and it is going to work in this string block. I'm just getting these first bits ready to sew, and we're going to sew 4 blocks at a time in this video. In real life, I always sew all my blocks at once. I just like to. But I know a lot of people who prefer to just do a few at a time. So whatever is comfortable for you, that's what you want to do. And you want to make sure as you lay these out that the line is completely covered beyond it enough that there's room for a seam allowance. Although it's not going to matter, you could move the string up. When I get there, I'll show you. But this is what you do. Get them ready, get them set, and then you go over your sewing machine, and it's time to sew those babies up. Everybody hold on to your hats. I'm going to scare all the quilt pleats. I'm sewing it backwards. Well, not really backwards. I'm just using the other side of the foot, the side we never use in quilting. But I just sometimes when I'm close to that edge like to sew it that way. And because there isn't an exact seam allowance when you're sewing these together, you want to make sure you're at least a 1/4 inch away. A little more doesn't hurt. I'm doing edge of the foot, but it just doesn't matter. So I wanted to do that and show you. I will sew this last one the way that a normal quilter would do, because we want to be normal quilters sometimes. So here we go, sewing it just along that seam, past the line where it needs to go. You just need to make sure it can flip over and press and be sewn down properly. So I cut them apart. I go to the pressing station and I just flip them and press them over to get those vertical lines started. This is a great place to use up shorter strings. So when you have shorter strings, do them here, use them here. It just will use up those little scraps and make them so valuable and happy. I was really tempted to do red and pink as I did this, but I just picked red. You saw how I just trimmed that off so it would have extra bulk. Sometimes I do go through and trim what I can off. Not always, but sometimes it just will make it weigh less and have less bulk. As I decide what red I want next, what works next, what's best, as I trim it and get it ready, I just pile them up again and do them the way you saw me do it before. This pattern came from a woman named Kat from Cat Quilts online, and in 2020 she did the string block drive for Covered in Love. This is a great block to do if you're going to work with a bunch of other people or just with yourself. As you can see, I made 3 quilts because it's so fun and so fast and so simple. As you watch, I'm just finishing those vertical lines, and when you get to the end, you want to make sure they're big enough because remember, we're going to be trimming these blocks down. We'll be cutting about a 1/4 inch off every edge, some of them a little more, some a little less. So you don't want the last little section of string to be too skinny on the 2 edges. I'm making sure that they're wide enough that when I trim them down, it won't take them into nothingness. And they don't have to be straight. You can see some of them have some crookedness to them, wonkiness to them. Wonky is a happy thing when you're making string blocks, and especially this string block. It's always so fun to get to this point in the blocks. We're almost halfway there. Well, We only made 4, but we're almost halfway there, trust me. And as I press them, I do like to take my scissors, and I thought you'd like to watch as I just cut off the little corners and the little extra bits just to make it less bulky. I'm still going to have a little bulk there, and it won't matter because I'm going to machine quilt these blocks. I finished all the blocks while you weren't peeking, so here are all the blocks ready to start the next section. And I simply take my longer strings and I lay one out. Now you want to leave enough room for a good seam allowance. Whatever adjustments you have to make, you can make them at this point, and you lay it out and get ready so that you can sew it, flip it over, and it's going to go really fast, these last few little strings. So I go through every one of my blocks, I lay them out, I choose a fabric just because sometimes I save a few fabrics I haven't used before in the block to put here because I like the contrast, but it doesn't matter. So you don't have to do that. Also, if you're not just doing a monochromatic quilt of one color, then you can jive it up with another color in this section. There are so many colorways you could make this quilt into. I could barely stop making them, and I think I haven't stopped. I'm going to have to make more and more. They're so quick, they're so fun, and they turn out so wonderful. So you can see we just sew that across, hold it straight, the best straight you want, and sew a seam. And then you take it over to your pressing station and press it open. As we press these over and look how wonderful this block is looking, notice that when you have the edges and they're at an angle, if you're not careful, they can not cover the whole block. So be sure that your strip is long enough that as it's sewn on the angle, it will cover the block. And I cut that one down just because I didn't want it to be so chubby of a strip. So you decide how big you want them. Sometimes I'll use a bigger piece and then I'll cut it down and I can use whatever's left again. Notice that I often will turn it to look. Part of what I'm doing is checking the side, making sure how it will look. And this one was too crooked. So if your strips are crooked, straighten them up. I just wanted to be sure I could sew a straight seam. Sometimes I just don't trim it till after. Again, sew them quickly, get them all done, and you'll get to the station and press them over. This one had 2 pieces, kind of like where we started that I had 3, and it works. So if you have something like that, don't worry about it. You just can make it work because string blocks will sew the next piece down and hold those 2 together. The last part of these blocks really are quick and fun. It goes from straight to dropping off. This one is a little crooked, so I want you to see that I didn't straighten it. I'm just going to sew on the straight top part of it. Otherwise, match them to the size they need. And as it drops off and you only need a little corner, I just use the funny end of my bigger chunks of scraps and cut them to the size they need by sewing them on first. You just want to cover the whole piece. Now, there are a couple little things like, for example, on this one, look how that little corner is showing, just right there. We're going to trim these down. If your corner shows, you might or might not need to worry about it or change it or fix it. This one, that whole corner showing, so I'm testing it to see if I can cut it out without caring. And yes, I can. So there is such a forgiveness to these blocks. As you sew them together, keep your 9.5-inch ruler near you. I love 9.5-inch blocks, and that's why I make mine this size. If you check out Kat's tutorial, she makes her blocks smaller. You can make blocks with this pattern any size you choose to. You just draw that diagonal on and make them the way you want. It will work for you. I like 9.5. As we trim these blocks, my best advice is make sure your blade is really, really sharp. Now would be a great time to put in a new blade. Here we go. Look how beautiful. When you make string blocks, every step makes them look better as you go, but this trimming stage just makes the blocks sing. They're beautiful. And you can see the angles. We have them all trimmed and ready to lay out together. You can lay these out in so many ways, but I'm going to do this straightforward way where I put the verticals up and down and the angled horizontals all going in the same direction. It just looks good. I can't wait to show you the others where I vary the colors of the strings. But this one is so beautiful, and I did a smaller center because I'm going to add a border. So this is going to be so fast to whip together to make the best little baby quilt. Now the tricky part, and this took me a while, is you have to make your brain happy. So whatever that means to you, there isn't a right and a wrong, and maybe your brain will just be happy right away, but mine argues with me sometimes. And so you can see I moved them, and then I moved them, and then I moved them. This never frustrates me because I think it's kind of funny and I think it's kind of fun. What I finally settle on that works for me is maybe going to bother you. It isn't about that. This is always about pleasing yourself. If it's something that you can live with and love, then be happy. So you can see the wonderful border fabric I chose, and it just looks so good. Adding a border is a big choice and it uses up less scraps, but I loved this fabric with the red and I wanted to. With the other two quilts that I made to show you, I didn't have a border. I just made more blocks so that it would be big all on its own with just the center. Here's the brown with the scrappy red. I love this one. I love the little pop of red in the brown, and I just randomly stuck it in a piece of red in most of the blocks. This one is low volume, and I have this sweet back. I've quilted these, I've bound them. They're ready to be happy quilts to go out into the world and give someone a wonderful hug. You can choose whatever colors will make you happy and will be wonderful at your house. Stay merry and creative.